Hey, this is Joe from Citrus County Porch Life, bringing you a daily word for men for January 30th, 2025. And the word for today is meaningful. Everything you speak to me is like joyous treasure, filling my life with gladness. Psalm 119, verse 11, the TPT. Etymology is the study I am taping this on Sunday, the previous Sunday, and I thought it would be the perfect time with traffic less than what it normally is. But these motorcycles, this Route 19 is like a straightaway. I'm looking at it right now, and boy, do they make noise. So the word is meaningful. Everything you speak to me is like joyous treasure, filling my life with gladness. That's Psalm 119, verse 111. TPT, I'm still not sure what that is. I should look it up. Etymology is the study of words, their meaning, and their origin. It explains the changes in connotations over generations. Because we are becoming a society that is technologically oriented, we have lost the art of words. We are a video first world. We have expanded what we do on screen and created visual masterpieces. But in the process, we have lost what we can create on paper. There is no replacement for what the mind can do when reading. We create evocative pictures that cannot be replicated on the screen. The saying, a picture is worth 1,000 words, is true, but we must not count out what God designed for our beautiful minds. Reading creates thousands of imaginations individually tailored to each person. When something is meaningful in whatever form it comes, it stimulates our imagination. Christ wants our minds to be meaningfully engaged in His Word. In reading God's words, picture yourself in the story, taking on the role of a character, and listen to what God says to you through this practice. Well, it isn't so much a question, it's telling you, what to do. And I was thinking back to the occasions that Christ used reading. And the one that immediately came to mind was when he went to the synagogue. That's a gathering place for Jews. That is not the temple. There's only one temple. We call, well, Jews call certain places temples, but the synagogue, the shul, they could call it the shul today, where you go and learn, and the males learn the Torah. But he went in, he took the scroll out, the reading for the day, and it was Isaiah. And he read it to them. And he gave a most profound statement. Today, this prophecy is fulfilled upon your hearing. Pretty much saying that he was God. And then another incident that popped in my mind was, and they were trying to trick him, and said to him, well, should we pay taxes to Caesar? Temple money and Roman money were totally separate. And when you went, one of the functions of the money changers was that they changed people's regular money into temple money because they could not accept Roman money. And So they were trying to trick him. And then he took a coin and he could see it, and it has writing on it. It said which Caesar it was. And that's when he said, if we render unto Caesar the things that are Caesar, and to God the things that are God. And yeah, and of course, when he was a younger man, probably a boy, and his parents lost him, and they found him teaching and reading the Torah was what Jews did. Even once they had the temple then, but now they don't have the temple, so it's kind of rabbinic Judaism. But in the time of Christ, they did have the high priest, even though the man in front of them was the eternal high priest, never elected, priest forever, according to the order of Melchizedek. And he would read, and that's what they would do. Young boys would read the scrolls. The Torah is on scrolls, considered very holy, and put in a very nice, I don't want to say box, but almost like a Christian tabernacle. In fact, I went to a concert, a guy that played 50s music, and it was held in a synagogue in Ocala, about 40 miles away. And right there in the middle, in the background, up against the wall, was where they held the Torah. I knew that's what it was. Maybe people thought it was just a piece of art. It had things on the outside of it, but that's where the Torah is held. And great esteem, great the Word of God delivered to Moses. So now I was thinking, one of the selections, I forget what it was. It must have been Second Samuel, and David was having the Ark of the Covenant moved. They didn't have the temple then and the Holy of Holies, so he's having it moved to a tent, but eventually brought it to a very holy man's house and kept it there for 3 months. But on the way, he's going down the street and he's dancing. And the implication is that he was dancing either naked or semi naked because Saul's daughter was up in one of the windows of the buildings where he passed by and she confronted him. Oh, how can you act like that? He says, I am dancing in praise of the Lord. And if you think that's bad, I'll do even more than that. He was very joyous, filled with the Spirit of God when he danced, and it was his joy. And that's the kind of character that I relate to. I had it pictured in my mind going down the street of old houses and just dancing as the Ark of the Covenant was behind you, the dwelling place of God. And it's quite, I read that passage many times, but this time when I read it, it came into my mind as a vision. And yeah, it was quite something. So, yeah, I like this. And of course, reading is very important. And I say that as I'm making a video. But every single day of my life, I read something of the Word of God. I have a schedule. I haven't been too well. I've fallen behind on my schedule, but I don't do it in a year at a time. Mine is sort of the Bible in a year or whatever. And it's always whatever because the older you get, more things come in the way. But yeah, this is wonderful. We've got to read, read. It is being lost. I did read a study where it was on students at the high end universities like Harvard, Yale, Columbia cannot read a novel. I can't believe that. You know, they're paying so much to go to school, and when they're assigned to read a novel, they can't. We had summer reading list when I was in grammar school of 10 books. I mean, you didn't get in trouble if you didn't do all 10, but I did all 10. I read all of Jules Verne. Any kind of adventure story for kids, I would read it. And in my mind, I was there. So, what this author says is very true. There's no replacement for what the mind can do in reading. Uh, and even though I went to school for a technical subject, I enjoyed all the literature courses I had. Um, it was imbued in me by my parents. My father read Westerns, Louis L'Amour Westerns, and that's how I learned to read. And sitting in his lap, it just, I don't know how it happened. It's not that I'm particularly smart or anything. And then my mother would be sitting across from him because when I was very young, we didn't have a TV. Uh, yeah, I'm talking about the early 50s. It was the golden age of television, but we didn't have one. We couldn't afford it. Didn't have a car, couldn't afford that. And so they read. So I'd go from my father's lap and ask my mother what she was reading, climb up in her lap, and she'd tell me, oh, it's about these people and what they were doing. And I went through Agatha Christie's books as soon as I could borrow adult books from the library. So, yes, reading is important. Reading is a holy thing. Christ did it. The prophets did it. The prophets wrote and read. And every one of the apostles would have been very deeply involved in the Torah. Of course, when the apostles were living in the time of Christ, there was no New Testament then. It was being written. But they definitely knew the Old Testament and Isaiah and Zechariah and Ezekiel, all the great prophets. So read, especially the Word of God and books that help you understand the Word of God. Um, yeah, so that's it. Have a good day, a holy day, and see you tomorrow.